Title: The Forgotten Files, Part 6. The Last Transmission. Prologue. Some stories refuse to end. Some nightmares don't fade. James Holloway walked into the house that never sleeps, convinced he would debunk its legend. He never walked out. The only thing that remained was his camera found on the front porch, still recording. For those who dared to watch, the footage showed something terrifying. James wasn't alone in that house. Now, a week later, another live stream has begun. But this time, no one started it. Chapter 1. The Broadcast That Shouldn't Exist. It was 3:13 a.m. when Mia Thompson, a paranormal investigator and one of James's closest friends, received an alert on her phone. James's channel was live, but that was impossible. Mia's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the notification. Her fingers trembled as she tapped the screen, her mind racing with questions. The channel had been silent since James vanished, and yeah, there it was, live, broadcasting from the house. The moment the video loaded, a chill ran down her spine. The screen was filled with a dim, flickering hallway, the same one James had explored. But something was off. The walls seemed to be pulsing, as though they were breathing. The shadows pooled unnaturally in the corners, stretching like they were reaching for something unseen. Then, a message flashed in the chat. "He's still in there." Mia's heart pounded. The camera inside the house tilted slightly as if someone or something had just picked it up. The screen flickered, distorting as though something unseen was watching from the other side. The chat filled with frantic messages. "There's someone behind the camera. Did you see the shadow move? Look at the doorway. It's changing." Then, for a split second, a figure too tall, too thin appeared at the edge of the frame. Its mouth was open, but no sound came out. The stream flickered, static crawling along the edges of the screen. The camera was shaking slightly, as if someone or something was holding it with trembling hands. The hallway in the background stretched longer than it should, the walls pulsing like a slow, uneven breath. A shadow passed by, but there was no source of light to cast it. As Mia's eyes locked onto the screen, the chat was already flooding with frantic messages. "Who started this? There's something in the doorway. Look at the floor, it's moving." The screen glitched for a second, and a distorted face flickered into view, its mouth stretched too wide, its eyes hollow pits. And then it was gone. Her heart pounded as she tapped the notification. The screen filled with grainy, static-laced footage. The camera was inside the house again, positioned in the middle of the grand, decayed hallway. The dust-covered piano loomed in the background, the same broken portraits hung on the walls. But something was different. The house was breathing. The wallpaper seemed to ripple, as if lungs expanded beneath it. The floor creaked rhythmically, though no one was visible. And then, from the farthest doorway, a whisper slithered through the air. "You're late." Mia's blood ran cold. That was James's voice. Chapter 2. The Descent. Mia grabbed her thermal camera, an EVP recorder, and a flashlight and drove straight to Black Hollow. She didn't hesitate as she pushed open the rotting front door. It was as if the house had been waiting. Inside, the air felt thick, like wading through something unseen. Her flashlight flickered violently. She set up a second camera, aiming it at the staircase, then activated the EVP recorder. Static. Then, a deep, distorted voice. "He's still here." The whisper coiled around her, slipping into her bones. The house wanted her to listen. Chapter 3. The Room of Shadows. Following the whispers, Mia reached the mirror. The same mirror James had looked into before his disappearance. Its surface wasn't reflective anymore. It was deep, endless. She raised her camera. The screen showed something she couldn't see with her own eyes. James, standing behind her. His face was pale, eyes hollow, his mouth slightly open like he was trying to speak, but no sound came out. His reflection reached for her, but when she spun around, no one was there. Then, a hand cold, wet, unnatural brushed against her shoulder. Mia's breath seized in her throat as an icy chill shot down her spine. Her muscles locked, but her heartbeat pounded in her ears, deafening. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her body refused to obey. The sensation wasn't just a touch, it was a grip, lingering. Fingers pressing slightly too long before retreating into the void behind her. A sharp, guttural exhale ghosted across her ear. and for a split second, she swore she could feel the texture of whatever had touched her slick, decayed, and pulsing with unnatural warmth. Her knees buckled. The darkness behind her deepened, as though something enormous had just pulled back, watching her reaction. The air around her seemed to pulse, thickening like it had weight. Mia turned slowly, her breath hitching, but there was no one there. Then, a soft scraping sound like nails dragging along the walls began behind her, moving closer. The walls trembled, as if something inside them was shifting, crawling, waiting. A whisper low, guttural snaked into her ear, not in words, but in breath. It smelled of something ancient, something that had been waiting too long. The air grew thick, as though the house itself had exhaled around her. The feeling spread down her spiny pressure, a presence pressing closer, unseen but undeniably there. The temperature plummeted instantly. A breath knot her own curled against the side of her face, carrying the scent of damp earth and something rotting. The floor beneath her shifted, as if something was moving just beneath the surface, pressing against the wood like it was trying to break through. The mirror shattered. Chapter 4. The House Speaks. The shards on the floor trembled. The whispers grew into an unbearable roar. The walls melted into darkness, revealing a vast void beyond the house, filled with twisting figures, watching. And then, James's voice again, clear this time. It's not a house, it's a mouth. Mia staggered back as the floor beneath her rippled like flesh. Many hands began to push through the walls, clawing at her. Something laughed deep within the void, a laugh that didn't belong to anything human. She ran, but the hallway stretched, doubling in length. The house wasn't letting her go. Chapter 5. The Last Transmission. Mia did the only thing she could. She turned the camera on herself. This place, it's alive. It doesn't let go. James, I think he's part of it now. Her breath hitched. A shadow moved behind her, not cast by anything she could see. This is my final warning. Do not come here. Then, the screen cut to black. The live stream ended abruptly at 3:13 a.m. Mia was never seen again. Epilogue. The House That Devours. A week later, another alert appeared. James's channel was live again. The thumbnail? A dark hallway. A distant figure. A new voice whispering. This time, it wasn't James. It was Mia. And if you listen closely, just before the screen fades to black, you can hear a final distorted whisper. A wet, choking noise halfway between a laugh and a gasp for air rattled through the speakers. The camera jolted violently, the screen tilting to reveal something crawling on the ceiling, its limbs bent in ways they shouldn't be. Then, just before the static consumed the feed, a voice layered, echoing, "Wrongest. It knows your name." The screen cut to black. But in the silence that followed, the faint sound of fingernails scratching against wood persisted, slow and deliberate, as if something or someone was trying to get out. A wet, choking noise halfway between a laugh and a gasp for air rattled through the speakers. The camera jolted violently, the screen tilting to reveal something crawling on the ceiling, its limbs bent in ways they shouldn't be. Then, just before the static consumed the feed, a voice layered, echoing, "Wrongest. It knows your name." Something drags along the floorboards, slow and heavy, like flesh on wood. A distorted laugh gurgles through the speakers, followed by a wet, slithering sound, something crawling. Then, faintly, almost lost in the static, a voice that is both James's and not James's. "You let it see you." A scraping sound, nails against wood, slow and deliberate. Then, faint but unmistakable, a muffled scream. The sound is cut short, as if something swallowed it whole. "You're next."